I do think the Lions factor was in the back of their minds. When we were at the launch a couple of weeks ago, Simon Easterby said, look, as well as the championship, there is another prize for the players. And I think they've tapped into it as motivation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've listened to all the podcasts and the BBC pundits and UK pundits who've been cheerleading the Scottish backline into the Lions team. And you hear, you have all these, like, the amount of times I've heard that we could have an entire Scottish backline.
In the line,
and looking at Gary Ringrose, who didn't start today, Aki, Henshaw, Keenan up against Blair Kinghorn, I'm sure in the backs of their minds, with Farrell watching on, they're going, we've beaten these guys 10 in a row and everyone thinks they're going into the Lions team ahead of us. And really, Andy Farrell, in good conscience, cannot make those 50-50 calls in Scottish favours because they can't be taken seriously on the back of that record. And then you've got Finn Russell and Sione Tuipulotu up in the stand laughing after Ireland get a bonus point try, which maybe it was gallows humour, but it's not a good look for your team. I just think every Irish player out there really enhanced their Lions credentials. It's going to be a massive Irish accent on this Lions tour, and Farrell was here alongside his wife Colleen watching, and it just cemented, like they're 2/3 of the way to a triple crown, and they only have to beat the worst Wales team in history to get there. How else do you secure your Lions place but performing well in these games against your rivals? Sure, there is going to be a couple, like Hugh Jones is very good. I'm not saying there's no Scottish players going on this tour. Like Tom Curry's definitely going. There's a load of English lads who are playing their way in as well. But there's going to be a very sizable, indeed probably a record Irish contingent, because they've been the most consistently dominant team in this tournament for the last couple of years. It's up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was a big day in that regard for talking about the Lions, I thought, for Hugo Keenan actually going up against Blair Kinghorn, because I think Kinghorn has been outstanding since he moved to Toulouse. He looks like a completely different player, and he got the better of Hugo Keenan in that Champions Cup final. That was an outstanding performance last season at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So I thought it was quietly an excellent performance from Keenan. Look, Keenan came into the Six Nations, under pressure is probably a bit of a stretch, but like Jamie Osborne hasn't seen a single minute of game time in either of the first two games, and he looks like a guy, in my mind, who could be a bolter for that Lions team. So it'll be interesting to see what Simon Easterby does for that Wales game. Like, not to look too far ahead yet, but I think there's definitely a bit of a balance, I think, to be struck in terms of, obviously keeping the foot in the throat here and keeping the momentum up. But I think he will look to maybe give a couple of guys game time as well, and not just for the sake of it. I'm talking about potentially like guys like Jamie Osborne, who's been